What is up, my Squirtleites? It is I, your king, welcoming you back to more Let's Play Destiny. In the last episode, we began the Crota's End raid, and today, I fully intend to finish it. However, we are starting off today with the most non-encounter encounter in all of Destiny raid history. This is technically an encounter, but it really isn't. In fact, it's more so just an introduction into a mechanic that is going to be more important later on in the raid. So, this area that we are in right now, immediately after the bridge area, is known as, well, lovingly known as by the community, as the Thrall Way, because it's a hallway with a lot of thrall in it. But to proceed through this hallway, we need to take down a couple of Shriekers. The Shriekers are what power these barriers that we cannot pass through unless we have the Enlighten buff. But because you're trying to get through this hallway as fast as you possibly can, passing the chalice around and waiting for the entire team to get the Enlighten buff is just not an option. You're not going to be doing that. So instead, what you do is you send one fire team member through the wall, they kill the Shrieker, that brings the barrier down, and then the rest may proceed while continuing to juggle the chalice. This is important in telling you what Enlighten does because it allows you to pass through these green walls, which is going to be much more necessary in this coming fight. Now, you may have noticed at the end that we were all trying to get through a door there. It's just a door to a sort of secret chest at the other side. The timer to get through that door is not in any way related to the entire run through the Thrall Way. It's just how fast you can get there after killing the last Shrieker. If you can't get there fast enough, yeah, it closes, and then you don't get just a secret chest. It's not anything required, but it is a little bit of extra loot, which is highly unfortunate. Okay, this is where that mechanic really comes into play, and also welcome to the final encounter area of the raid, everybody. This is not just where we're going to be doing this encounter, but also do battle against Crota himself. But first, we need to take down Yut, who is known as a Death Singer. Death Singers are very powerful hive wizards that have the ability to literally sing the concept of death. They will sing what is called a liturgy, the Liturgy of Death, and if the liturgy is heard by anyone that is not a hive, they will die upon the ending of the song, a final death that there is no coming back from, which is an incredibly dangerous concept. Now, in the Destiny 1 version of the raid, this was basically just a blitz of an encounter. You were given 2 minutes, which was the entire duration of the liturgy, to get into the crystal room where Yut was camped out and kill her before the song was done. You had basically split up into 2 groups of 3 who would go onto either side. They would kill all of the enemies in there, which would then allow you to finally kill a Shrieker. Once the Shrieker was down, the walls would drop, but both Shriekers had to die. And once the walls dropped, you would then have to kill Yut as fast as possible, although she actually didn't have that much health. It was more so just about getting to her in time before the 2 minutes was up. So it was really just a big blitz of an encounter. This version is somewhat similar. It retains a lot of the same feel, but there's quite a few notable changes. For starters, Yut is now roaming around the entire arena, mainly the front end of the room, but still all over the arena, and she has a big shield on her. To take this shield down, we need to kill 4 different shield bearer wizards that are hidden all throughout the arena, but they are hidden in 4 of 7 possible locations. There are 3 here in the back of the room, which are immediately to our right. You can see the green sort of wall to my right there. That is one of the locations. There's one on the right, middle, and left side. And then there are 2 towers that are on the back ends of the room that have a top and a bottom room. To find these wizards, you are going to need to, and this is what I was doing before, you need to run around the arena and scout them out. They are found by looking on your radar for a specific spot, a specific red bar that's going to tell you that they're there, but you specifically do not want to go into the rooms where the red circles on your radar appear, because a circle denotes that it is either a vehicle or a construct, in this case a Shrieker. So all of the wrong rooms have Shriekers, all of the correct rooms have the wizards. To pass through these walls, to get to the wizards, again, you need the Enlighten buff, which is gotten by, you guessed it, passing the chalice around. But this time you have to pass it around to 4 people, so that 4 people can go into these rooms. Someone scouts out the rooms, they call out all the rooms, the 4 people pass the chalice around until they have Enlightened, get into position, and then run in and kill the wizards as fast as you can, because if you're not quick enough, the liturgy begins, Yut starts singing it, and if it finishes, you wipe. To stop the liturgy from happening, you need to do enough damage to Yut to pass her damage threshold. You may have noticed a tick on her health bar that denotes that threshold. If you get past that, you're safe, the liturgy will not kill you, and the song is interrupted. Once that happens, then the liturgy just counts down to the final timer, and at that point you are done dealing damage and you have to start anew. Same thing though, this is me scouting. See how on the top there is a red circle that was on the radar very briefly, but there was an arrow underneath it. That tells me that the Shrieker is in the bottom room, while in the top room there is a wizard. Same concept here. Shrieker down below me, but a wizard up top. So as of right now, I am currently relaying the information to my team members as to where all the wizards are at, and we are all basically choosing our rooms from there as we continue to pass this chalice around. Again, you only need the 4 with the Enlightened, and then the 5th person is pretty much just going to hold onto the chalice while we deal damage to Uryut. All of that said, though, this is kind of a fight where, as easy as it is, the concept is you cannot make mistakes. If you get a call out wrong or you send somebody into a Shrieker room, that will set you back so much that trying to do another chalice pass is basically impossible. You can try it, and it is doable, but it really kind of scuffs your run. And for the most part, you really can't afford to do it, especially because that person will then be trapped in the room, and that's a big source of damage that you are losing out of your team. So you really got to make sure you get the callouts right. But otherwise, it's still a blitz of a fight. You still have to be quick, because if you're not fast enough getting to these shield wizards in time, the liturgy will actually start on its own. As you can see right now, the timer has already began. So now we're blitzing back to get enough damage in time, although she's got so little health that we should be taking her out with no problem. So still the spirit of the original fight, but with quite a few notable changes. In fact, this is probably the most changed encounter in the Destiny 2 version, but in a way that I think is still very satisfying and incredibly fun. In fact, I think that is my favorite encounter of this entire raid, mainly just because I think they made the bridge a little bit too tedious, and the Crota fight, well, we'll talk about that next. So, once Uryut is down, a circle will form around the crystal here in the back of the room. If everybody gathers up around the crystal, a green glow will start to form, and once all 6 are in, the fight begins. Now, in the Destiny 1 version, Crota spawns at the back of the room, but here in this version, he spawns at the front because things have changed up a little bit this time. So, once again, we need to get the chalice, and the chalice is once again going to be used to pass around the Enlightened buff, but this time, the Enlightened buff is not needed to dunk onto plates or pass through walls or anything of that nature. No. This time around, the Enlightened buff is necessary to pick up swords. That's right. We are going to be going after 3 sword bearer swords, so the hive swords, that we are going to need to actually start the damage phase in this fight. But to get to that point, first we need to kill some knights that are posted up in each of the towers. There's going to be 2 on either side. They are called boomer knights because, well, the weapon that they shoot is called a boomer. It's basically a big grenade launcher that fires out arc damage that you need to take out because they can hit you at pretty much any range. Once all of the knights are down, these ogres are going to start to spawn. Once all of the ogres are dead, and that's just 2 ogres, then the sword bearer knight will spawn, thus allowing you to get your first sword. You continue to pass the chalice around, and while you get enlightened, each person then, the first person to get enlightened will then grab the first sword. You will then go back to killing the knights again, back to the ogres again. Another sword bearer will spawn. The second person who gets enlightened gets the second sword. Rinse and repeat. You want basically a total of 4 people to get the enlightened buff, but only 3 of them to be sword bearers. The reason being is that the 4th enlightened person, which is going to be me in this gameplay, is going to have a different job from everybody else. So the thing about Crota is that Crota does not like swords, or, well, Crota operates under sword logic, but ironically, it makes him weaker to swords. Not just the hive swords, but swords as heavy weapons in general. So your entire team is going to be running these heavy weapon swords, except for the 6th person, which is going to be me again in this instance, and we'll talk about how that's going to work here in a second. Now, in the Destiny 1 version, and this is my biggest gripe with this version of the encounter and why I don't like the change a lot, is because in the Destiny 1 version, only 1 person had a hive sword, and they would actually do all of the damage to Crota. The rest of the team was actually responsible with taking down Crota's shields so that the sword bearer could hurt Crota, which really kind of made for this a very unique encounter where you essentially selected a hero that would take down Crota all on their own, despite the fact that you still had the fire team helping them take Crota down by getting him to bend the knee. Once enough damage was done to Crota, he would eventually drop to the ground and you could start dealing damage. That idea is still kept in theory, but they've kind of reversed it this time. So instead, the 3 hive sword bearers are what is necessary to bring down Crota's shield this time, And once the shield is down, then everybody just wails on him with conventional weapons. You can use rockets, you can use linear fusion rifles, but the most popular is, again, using swords because there is that damage buff with swords against Crota in particular. And that is going to be how we're going to do this fight. But again, in Destiny 1, it was just bring the shields down, he takes the knee, and then the single sword bearer would do all of the rest of the damage. They could run in, do a quick sword combo, run away, wait for the shield to go up, because it would do so incredibly fast. Team lays into him with more damage, and then it's attack time, rinse and repeat a few times before everything starts over. Really cool concept that you just don't really see in raids at all, where this one person is kind of doing all of the work and sort of your team hero, which is interesting. However, this is also a reason why this raid was incredibly exploitable. And also, it looks like, I believe one of our teammates disconnected here, but we still proceeded as normal anyway. I think we actually somehow ended up with 4 swords total, but I didn't get the memo here, which is why I'm down in the pit going after, but everyone's like, nope, we're ready to go. So it was like, oh, shoot, okay, back to it, let's begin. So, that giant green sphere that is in the back of the room is called an oversoul. It's literally a portion of Crota's soul that he has used as a contingency plan. If he is about to die and the oversoul timer counts down, he will use the oversoul to wipe the room, but there is a way to counter the oversoul. The last enlightened person is the only one that is able to damage it, aka me. When I get as close to the timer as I possibly can, I take the oversoul out, which 1, prevents us from dying, but 2, also ends the damage phase, which is why I want to do this as late as possible. That is essentially my job, so really all I'm doing is debuffing Crota so everyone can do as much damage as they can, because I really don't want to be using a sword in this instance. Otherwise, it would just be diminishing returns at that point, and my job is to mainly focus on the sword, or the oversoul, rather than output as much DPS as I possibly can. Does that make sense? Now, going back to the Destiny 1 version, the reason this version was so broken was because Gjallarhorn, just Gjallarhorn. Gjallarhorn was so overpowered back in the day that 2 shots from Gjallarhorn was enough to bring Crota's shield down, and because Gjallarhorn held 2 in the chamber, you could solo Crota's shield, essentially. So what a solo player would do is grab the sword, stand over here on the bridge, kind of close to Crota, fire 2 rockets at him really quickly, then pick up the sword and run up and do the damage. And this could all be done completely solo. The other reason this was a doable was because, believe it or not, this was the only encounter where the Chalice actually existed in Destiny 1. That's right. Instead of having to pass the Chalice around like you do in Destiny 2, all the Chalice did was make it possible to heal. See that presence of Crota buff above my armor charge on the left side of the screen? That prevents people from healing, but in Destiny 2, there are so many sources of self-heal available that it really doesn't actually do anything all that threatening. But in Destiny 1, there weren't really a lot of methods of self-heal outside of Devour, which only Void Warlocks had access to. So the Chalice was necessary to allow the one person who is put in a lot of danger, aka the Swordbearer, to heal while everybody else basically hung back out of danger, taking care of all long-range threats, as well as also dealing with Crota's shields. So essentially, the Swordbearer would come down, grab the Chalice, pretty much hold on to the Chalice unless somebody else desperately needed it, and then do all of the damage themselves that way, which was kind of the entire function of the fight. But again, this time around, things have changed so drastically that it is almost a shadow of its former self, and I just kind of miss that entire concept of one person being the hero. I really liked that idea, and I'm sad to see it go, and really not be retained in any way. Like with the Uriut fight, the spirit of it still exists. This one, it's vaguely there, but it's not the same, man. It really just isn't the same. And the fact that so much of the focus is on, you know, bringing down the Oversoul, which as you can see here, I'm running double special just to make this happen, because there's not really a reason for me to use a primary when I can just combination blow and ability kill everything to death. And really all I'm using my fusion rifle for is a little bit of extra damage on Crota, but mostly just to kill the Oversoul. Now, if you look at Crota's health bar, you may notice that, yes, he does have a damage threshold, and this is going to factor in at the end and is a little bit different from the damage threshold on Uriut. It's not like you have to get to this point to stop any debuff. No. Or sorry, wipe mechanic, excuse me. Although there is an enrage timer on Crota, but I believe it's after 3 damage phases the enrage timer happens. So we would have an entire one after this if we didn't reach this threshold. But with now 6 people on the field, I think we should be more than fine, especially because I do believe the person that disconnected has been our primary DPS player, or was our primary DPS player in this encounter normally. They just had a perfect roll on their sword, so kind of helps in that regard to have them on the field, but I do believe we will hit the threshold in this particular go-around right here. So, 3 sword bearers run in, they're going to combo with damage, look at that sword drain, and once it's all the way down, Crota takes the knee, and here we go, damage time. Okay, so I'm dealing all the damage that I can, debuffing them a little bit, using my fusion rifle, which is really all the DPS I have at the moment, and look at that health go all the way down. Now, once the threshold hits, we hit our final stand phase. When final stand begins, sword goes up again, we wait for a second, and eventually, after he slams the ground, the shield is going to go down again. We're going to go in, do the damage we can, and now we just need to beat the crap out of him, and we've only got 20 seconds to do so, because no matter what, the Oversoul is going to wipe us this time. We do not have a choice. We have to kill him in this time, so all the damage that we can. I am monitoring the Oversoul, but it doesn't matter because I'm dead, but everybody else has managed to take him out. And thus ends Crota once and for all. That is right. Also, I love it. We got wiped by the Oversoul anyway, but then right as we got wiped, I got revived, and now I can revive everyone else. What a hilarious series of events there. Guys, that is going to be it for this one. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this episode very, very much. And I will see you all in the next one.